I said get out. Your kind doesn't belong here, and you never will. The words sliced through the crystal-adorned ballroom like shattered glass, silencing the string quartet mid-note. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward the commotion, champagne flutes frozen mid-air, designer gowns rustling as necks craned to witness the spectacle unfolding near the marble staircase. Maya Chen stood frozen, her second-hand dress, carefully pressed that morning, suddenly feeling like sandpaper against her skin. The silver tray in her hands trembled, causing the remaining champagne glasses to clink together in a melody of her humiliation. Her heart hammered against her ribcage, so violently she thought everyone in the Belmore Grand Hotel could hear it. Victoria Ashford Montgomery towered over her, despite being 3 inches shorter. But money had a way of adding height, Maya had learned. Victoria's crimson Valentino gown probably cost more than Maya's entire year of college tuition, the tuition she dropped out from to support her ailing grandmother. The diamonds at Victoria's throat caught the light from the chandelier, throwing prismatic sparkles across Maya's face like tiny accusations. "Did you hear me?" Victoria's voice dripped with venom, her perfectly manicured finger pointing toward the service entrance. "Or do I need to speak slower for you to understand?" Maya's throat constricted. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Not tonight. Not on the night she'd finally saved enough tips to pay for her grandmother's medication. "Mrs. Montgomery, I was just serving drinks as instructed." Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended, barely above a whisper. "Instructed." Victoria let out a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "You were hovering around my husband like a common streetwalker. Don't think I didn't see you batting those pathetic eyes at him." The accusation hit Maya like a physical blow. Her face flushed hot with shame and anger. She'd done no such thing. She'd simply refilled David Montgomery's glass when he gestured to her, a simple, professional interaction she'd repeated 100 times tonight with 100 different guests. "That's not true," Maya said, her voice finding strength she didn't know she possessed. "I was doing my job." The crowd began to murmur. Maya could feel their judgment seeping into her skin. To them, she was invisible, just part of the furniture, part of the service, part of the machinery that made their glittering world function. Until now. Now she was the entertainment. Victoria's eyes narrowed into slits. "Your job? Your job is to be invisible. Your job is to know your place. But clearly, someone forgot to teach you that there are levels to this world, and you, sweetheart, are at the very bottom." David Montgomery appeared beside his wife, his face reddening with embarrassment. "Victoria, darling, perhaps we should." "Don't you dare defend her." Victoria whirled on him, and for a moment, her carefully constructed mask of superiority cracked, revealing something raw and insecure underneath. "I saw the way you looked at her. Do you think I'm stupid?" "I didn't," David started, but his wife cut him off. "Of course you didn't. They never do." Victoria turned back to Maya, her composure returning like armor. "You know what? I'm calling your manager. You're fired. Pack your things and get out of my sight." Maya's world tilted. Fired. The word echoed in her mind like a death sentence. This job was her lifeline. Without it, she couldn't afford her grandmother's medication. Without it, she couldn't pay the rent on their tiny apartment. Without it, they would be on the streets within a month. "Please," Maya heard herself say, hating how desperate she sounded. "Please, Mrs. Montgomery. I need this job. My grandmother, she's sick, and I should care about your grandmother because—" Victoria examined her nails with theatrical boredom. "Let me guess, she's dying? They always are. It's always a sob story with you people." The cruelty of the statement sucked the air from the room. Even some of the guests looked uncomfortable now, shifting their weight, suddenly finding their shoes fascinating. But no one spoke up. No one ever did. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give Victoria the satisfaction. She'd learned long ago that tears were currency in the world of the wealthy. They bought entertainment, not compassion. "Mr. Peterson." Victoria called out, and Maya's manager appeared, his round face already sweating with anxiety. He'd been watching from the corner, she realized. He'd seen everything and done nothing. "Yes, Mrs. Montgomery?" Peterson's voice was obsequious, dripping with the kind of servitude that made Maya's stomach turn. "This waitress was inappropriate with my husband. Fire her. Now. And make sure she never works at any establishment in this city again. I have friends everywhere, Mr. Peterson. Everywhere." Peterson's eyes darted to Maya, and in them she saw her fate. There would be no defense, no investigation, no justice. Just the word of a billionaire's wife against a nobody waitress. Of course, Mrs. Montgomery. Right away. He grabbed Maya's arm roughly. Come on, you. I want you out in 5 minutes. But I didn't do anything. Maya finally raised her voice, and it cracked with emotion she could no longer contain. I have witnesses. Half the staff saw what happened. Nothing happened. Witnesses. Victoria laughed, a sound like ice cracking. You think anyone here is going to risk their job for you? You think anyone cares about what you have to say? She swept her arm across the room. Look around you, sweetheart. These people, they eat at my restaurants. They stay at my hotels. They invest in my husband's companies. You're replaceable. There are 1,000 girls just like you waiting to take your place. The truth of it stung worse than the accusation. Maya looked around the ballroom, at the faces of the other servers, the bartenders, the event coordinators. They all looked away. Every single one of them. Mrs. Montgomery, a timid voice spoke up. Maya's heart leaped. It was Sarah, another waitress, someone Maya had helped train just 2 weeks ago. I was standing right there. She didn't. Shut up, Peterson hissed at Sarah. Unless you want to join her. Sarah's mouth snapped shut, her eyes filling with guilty tears. But she said nothing more. Victoria smiled, a predator sensing victory. See? Even your little friend knows better. Now, are you going to leave with dignity, or do I need to call security? Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides. The silver tray had long since clattered to the floor, forgotten. Her mind raced through options, possibilities, escape routes. But there were none. This was the reality of her world. The powerful crushed the powerless, and there was nothing she could do about it. I'll leave, Maya said quietly, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. But you should know something, Mrs. Montgomery. Victoria raised an eyebrow, amused. Oh? And what's that? Maya met her eyes directly, refusing to look away. I pity you. The ballroom went deathly silent. Even Peterson gasped. Victoria's face contorted with rage. You pity me? Yes, Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. Because all your money, all your power, all your friends and influence, none of it can buy you peace of mind. You're so insecure that you see threats in innocent waitresses. You're so unhappy that you need to destroy someone else just to feel powerful for 5 minutes. I may be poor, Mrs. Montgomery, but at least I can sleep at night. Can you? The slap came so fast Maya didn't see it coming. Her head snapped to the side, her cheek exploding with pain. The room gasped collectively, 100 people inhaling at once. Get her out of here, Victoria said coldly, rubbing her palm. Now. 2 security guards appeared as if summoned by magic. They grabbed Maya's arms, lifting her slightly off the ground. She didn't resist. There was no point. Her cheek throbbed, and she could taste blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. As they dragged her toward the service entrance, Maya caught a glimpse of her reflection in one of the massive gilded mirrors lining the wall. Her hair had come loose from its bun. Her dress was rumpled. Her cheek was already beginning to swell. She looked exactly like what Victoria had called her, nothing. The service door slammed behind her, cutting off the light and warmth of the ballroom. The concrete hallway was cold, utilitarian gray. This was where people like her belonged, apparently. In the shadows, in the back rooms, out of sight. Peterson appeared moments later, holding a cardboard box. Your things, he said without meeting her eyes. Your final paycheck will be mailed. Don't come back. Maya took the box mechanically. Inside were her worn coat, her battered backpack, the photo of her grandmother she kept in her locker. The sum total of her presence in this place. Mr. Peterson, she said as he turned to leave. You know I didn't do anything wrong. He paused, his hand on the door handle. For a moment, she thought he might say something, might offer some small kindness, some acknowledgement of the injustice. It doesn't matter, he said finally. It never does. The door closed and Maya was alone. She stood in that gray hallway for a long moment, holding her box of belongings, tasting blood, and feeling her cheek throb. This was rock bottom. This was what defeat felt like. Maya Chen had no way of knowing that in exactly 37 minutes, everything would change. She had no way of knowing that her phone, currently vibrating in her bag, contained 17 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. She had no way of knowing that at that very moment, a private jet was making an emergency landing at the city airport. And she definitely had no way of knowing that the man stepping off that plane, the man who had just cut short $1 billion deal in Tokyo, the man who was now climbing into a black SUV with darker windows. That man was coming for her. Her brother was coming. And Victoria Ashford Montgomery had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Maya sat on the cold concrete steps behind the hotel, her cardboard box beside her, staring at her phone screen through blurry eyes. 17 missed calls. All from the same unknown number, with a Tokyo country code. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the notifications. Whoever it was had been desperately trying to reach her for the past 2 hours. Between the calls were text messages, each one more urgent than the last. Maya, pick up. It's important. Please, I need to talk to you now. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? I'm on my way. Don't do anything. Just wait. The last message had come through 7 minutes ago. Maya's finger hovered over the callback button. It was probably a scam. It had to be. Nobody called her with that kind of urgency, except. The phone erupted in her hand, vibrating so violently she nearly dropped it. The same Tokyo number flashed across the screen. With trembling fingers, she answered. Hello. Maya. The voice that came through was breathless, tight with emotion. Oh, thank God. Are you okay? Where are you? Maya's breath caught in her throat. That voice. She knew that voice. But it couldn't be. It had been 12 years since she'd heard it. 12 years since. Ethan. Her voice cracked on the name, barely above a whisper. Yes, it's me. Maya, listen to me very carefully. Are you hurt? Are you safe? Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks before she could stop them. Ethan. Her brother. The brother who had disappeared when she was 10 years old, the brother their parents had sent away after the accident, the brother she'd been told was dead by the time she turned 15. How? She choked on the word. How are you calling me? They said you were dead. Grandma said. I know what they told you. I know, and I'm so sorry, Maya. But I'm alive. I'm here. And I need to know if you're safe right now. Maya looked around at the dark alley, at her box of belongings, at the service entrance of the hotel where she'd just lost everything. Safe? Nothing about her life was safe. I'm okay. I'm behind the Belmore Grand Hotel. I just lost my job and her voice broke completely. Ethan, I don't understand. Where have you been? Why did you? The Belmore. Ethan's voice sharpened. The Belmore Grand? What happened? Tell me everything. Right now. Something in his tone made Maya sit up straighter. This wasn't the voice of her 19-year-old brother, the one who used to sneak her extra dessert and help with her homework. This was the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed, someone with authority and power. Through hiccuping sobs, Maya told him everything. Victoria Montgomery's accusations. The slap. The humiliation. Her grandmother's medication she could no longer afford. Peterson's betrayal. The way everyone had just watched and done nothing. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Maya thought the call had dropped. Ethan, are you still there? I'm here. His voice was different now. Cold. Dangerous. Maya, I need you to listen very carefully. I'm 10 minutes away. I want you to go back inside that hotel. Go back to that ballroom. What? No, I can't. They'll have me arrested. Security already threw me out. They won't touch you. Trust me. I need you to walk back in there, and I need you to wait for me. Can you do that? Maya looked at the service door, then down at her rumpled dress and her swelling cheek. Ethan, I don't understand what's happening. Who are you? How did you even know I was working tonight? I've always known where you were, Maya. Every day for the last 12 years. I've been watching over you, even when you didn't know it. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't contact you until now. But that ends tonight. Everything ends tonight. Watching over me? What are you talking about? We've been barely surviving. Grandma and we've been alone. You haven't been alone. Ethan's voice softened slightly. The scholarship that paid for your school supplies every year? That was me. The grant that covered Grandma's hospital bill 3 years ago when she had pneumonia? Me. The landlord who never raised your rent despite everyone else's going up? I bought that building 5 years ago. Maya's world tilted sideways. You what? I couldn't come back. Not until I had built enough to protect you. To protect both of you. But I've been there, Maya. Every step. And now someone has hurt you. Someone has humiliated you. And I'm going to make sure they understand exactly what they've done. Ethan, you're scaring me. What have you built? What are you talking about? She heard what sounded like a car door slamming, voices in the background shouting orders. My name is Ethan Chun, he said, and Maya could hear footsteps now, rapid and purposeful. But most people know me as Ethan Zhao Chun, founder and CEO of Titan Industries. I'm currently the 8th richest person in Asia, and as of yesterday, I closed a deal that puts my net worth at approximately $43 billion. Maya stopped breathing. That's not possible. You're my brother. I'm your brother who has spent every day of the last 12 years building an empire for one reason and one reason only, so that no one could ever hurt our family again. So that what happened to us, what our parents did, sending me away, abandoning us, could never happen again. I was going to wait, Maya. I was going to wait until everything was perfect before I came back into your life. But then I saw what happened tonight. You saw it. Maya's voice rose. How did you see it? I have people everywhere. Security. Protection. They're supposed to keep you safe, but tonight... His voice hardened again. Tonight someone slipped through. Someone hurt you. And that ends now. I'm pulling up to the hotel. Go inside. Walk into that ballroom with your head held high. And wait for me. Maya stood up on shaking legs, her mind reeling. Ethan Chun. Titan Industries. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Titan Industries had revolutionized renewable energy technology. They owned hotels, tech companies, manufacturing plants across 3 continents. The CEO was notoriously private. No one had ever gotten a clear photograph of him. He'd built his empire from nothing, the business world whispered. A ghost who became a king. And that was her brother? Maya. Ethan's voice pulled her back. Do you trust me? It was absurd. She hadn't seen him in 12 years. He'd let her believe he was dead. But somewhere, underneath all the confusion and shock, Maya felt something else, the memory of a brother who had taken a blame when she broke their mother's vase. A brother who had given her his dinner when she was still hungry. A brother who had promised, the night before he was sent away, that he would come back for her someday. Yes, she whispered. I trust you. Then go. Now. I'm walking through the lobby. I'll be there in 2 minutes. Maya ended the call and stared at the service entrance. Her legs felt like water, but she forced them to move. One step, then another. She pulled open the door. The concrete hallway seemed different now, charged with electricity. She could hear the music from the ballroom, the laughter and conversation. The sounds of people who had watched her humiliation and done nothing. Maya squared her shoulders. Her cheeks still throbbed. Her dress was still rumpled. But something had shifted in her chest, some fundamental change in the axis of her world. She walked down the hallway, past the kitchen where staff members stopped and stared, past the coat check where the attendant's jaw dropped, past security guards who reached for her, and then inexplicably stepped back, their radios crackling with urgent messages. Maya reached the ballroom entrance. The same doors she'd been dragged through 20 minutes ago. She put her hand on the ornate handle and pushed. The ballroom fell silent again, but this time it was different. Heads turned. Whispers erupted. Victoria Montgomery stood near the bar, her face contorting with rage at the sight of Maya. What the hell are you doing back here? Victoria shrieked, starting toward her. Security. Security. But the security guards didn't move. They were staring at their phones, at their radios, their faces pale. I said remove her. Victoria demanded. Mrs. Montgomery, one of the guards said carefully, we've received orders from. I don't care about your orders. This is my event. Get her out. The main ballroom doors, the ones reserved for VIP guests, burst open. A man strode through them, and the crowd parted like water. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than the combined net worth of everyone in the room. His hair was slightly longer than business appropriate, and his eyes, Maya's eyes, she realized with a jolt, scanned the ballroom with predatory precision until they landed on her. Behind him came a wall of men in dark suits, security personnel who moved with military efficiency. But it was the man himself who commanded the room's attention. He carried power like a second skin, natural and absolute. Maya, Ethan said, and his voice carried across the entire ballroom, despite not being raised. Are you hurt? She touched her swollen cheek, and his eyes followed the movement. Something dangerous flickered across his face. Who is that? Someone whispered. Oh my God, someone else gasped. Is that Ethan Chun? From Titan Industries. It can't be. He never appears in public. That's him. I saw him at the Tokyo Summit last year. That's actually him. Ethan crossed the ballroom in long strides, his security detail fanning out behind him. He stopped in front of Maya and gently took her face in his hands, examining her cheek with an expression that made several people in the crowd step backward. "I'm okay," Maya whispered. "Really?" "No," Ethan said quietly. "You're not. But you will be." He turned to face the room, keeping one arm around Maya's shoulders. "Someone want to tell me who put their hands on my sister?" The silence that followed Ethan's question was absolute. 200 people collectively held their breath, and Maya could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Victoria Montgomery's face had gone from flushed with anger to pale as porcelain. She stood frozen near the bar, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. For the first time that evening, she looked uncertain. I'm sorry," Victoria said, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. "There must be some misunderstanding. I'm Victoria Asher Montgomery, and this is my charity gala. I don't believe we've had the pleasure of—" "I know exactly who you are," Ethan cut her off, his voice sharp as a blade. "Victoria Ashford Montgomery, married to David Montgomery, heir to the Montgomery hotel chain, board member of the Ashford Foundation. You have a reputation for generous charitable donations and ruthless social climbing. You're also the person who just assaulted my sister." The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Victoria's carefully constructed smile crumbled. "Assault? That's absurd. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Your sister, she was inappropriate with my husband. I simply asked her to leave." "You slapped her." Ethan's words fell like stones. "In front of 200 witnesses. You humiliated her, fired her, and threatened to blacklist her from every establishment in the city. And before that, you falsely accused her of something she didn't do." David Montgomery stepped forward, his face sweating. "Mr. Chun, I assure you, there was nothing inappropriate about the waitress's behavior. My wife was she was mistaken. Perhaps we can discuss this privately." "Privately?" Ethan's laugh was devoid of humor. "You want to discuss this privately? The way you publicly humiliated my sister?" "No, Mr. Montgomery. We're going to discuss this right here, right now, in front of everyone." One of Ethan's security team approached and handed him a tablet. He glanced at it briefly before continuing. "Interesting. The Belmore Grand Hotel, this very building, is owned by Meridian Hospitality Group. And the Montgomery Hotel chain has a partnership agreement with Meridian that accounts for approximately 37% of your annual revenue." He looked at David with cool assessment. "That partnership agreement comes up for renewal in 3 months." David's face went from red to gray. "Mr. Chun, please." "I acquired controlling interest in Meridian Hospitality Group approximately 4 hours ago." Ethan's voice was conversational, almost casual, which somehow made it more terrifying. "The deal closed while I was on the plane here. So technically, David, you're standing in my hotel right now." The whispers grew louder. People were pulling out their phones, frantically typing, fact-checking. Maya watched as the reality of who her brother was, what he was capable of, rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Victoria found her voice, though it shook. "You can't this is extortion. You can't threaten our business because of some misunderstanding with a waitress." "Some waitress?" Ethan's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You mean my sister? The woman you slapped? The woman you tried to destroy over your own insecurities?" He took a step toward Victoria, and she instinctively backed up. "Let me make something very clear to everyone in this room. Maya Chun is not some waitress. She is my sister. She is under my protection. And anyone who hurts her, humiliates her, or threatens her in any way will discover exactly what it means to make an enemy of me." "Ethan," Maya whispered, tugging his sleeve. "You don't have to do this." He looked down at her, and his expression softened for just a moment. "Yes, I do. You've spent 12 years fighting alone. Tonight, that ends." Peterson, the manager, had been trying to meld into the wallpaper, but Ethan's security team had positioned themselves strategically around the room. There was nowhere to hide. "You," Ethan pointed at Peterson. "You're the manager who fired my sister without investigating the accusation? Who grabbed her roughly and threatened her?" Peterson looked like he might faint. "Sir, Mrs. Montgomery is a valued client. I had to." "You had to what? Follow orders that violated your own employees' rights? You had to participate in her humiliation." Ethan glanced at his tablet again. "James Peterson, you've been manager here for 7 years. Decent record until tonight. Tell me, James, do you think what happened to my sister was fair? The question hung in the air. Peterson's eyes darted to Victoria, then to the floor. Answer him, one of Ethan's security team commanded. No, Peterson whispered finally. No, it wasn't fair. She didn't do anything wrong. But Mrs. Montgomery insisted, and she threatened my job if I didn't comply. Victoria's face flushed red again. You coward. You spineless. Enough. Ethan's single word silenced her. Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Peterson, you're fired. Not for following orders, but for being too weak to do the right thing. However, I'm also aware you have a family and bills to pay. My HR department will contact you tomorrow with a severance package and a letter of recommendation, on the condition that you never work in management again until you develop a spine. Peterson nodded mutely, tears of relief in his eyes. Ethan turned to the other staff members, many of whom were watching from doorways and corners. Everyone who witnessed what happened to my sister tonight and said nothing. I'm disappointed but not surprised. But there was one person who tried to speak up. Sarah Chun, no relation apparently, where are you? A timid young woman stepped forward from the crowd of servers. Sarah's eyes were wide with fear. You tried to defend my sister, Ethan said. You were willing to risk your job to tell the truth. That takes courage. He nodded to one of his assistants. Sarah, you're promoted. I'm placing you as interim manager of this hotel's events department, effective immediately. Triple your current salary. Sarah's mouth fell open. What? But I'm just a waitress. I don't have the qualifications. You have integrity. That's more valuable than any qualification. Ethan's gaze swept the room. I need people I can trust in my properties. People who will do the right thing even when it's difficult. He turned back to Victoria and David. The couple stood together now, David's hand on his wife's arm as if to steady her or restrain her. Maya couldn't tell which. As for you two, Ethan continued, his voice dropping to something cold and final. Victoria, you're going to make a public apology to my sister. Right here. Right now. In front of everyone who watched you humiliate her. I will do no such thing. Victoria spat, her pride overwhelming her fear. I don't care who you are, or how much money you have. You can't just waltz in here and... Your foundation, Ethan interrupted calmly. The Ashford Foundation. You're the board chair, correct? The foundation that relies heavily on corporate sponsorships and donations from companies like, let's see. He scrolled on his tablet. Titan Industries, which has donated $15 million over the past 3 years. And there's also your family's company, Ashford Pharmaceuticals, which has 3 major contracts with subsidiaries of my company totaling approximately $200 million annually. The color drained from Victoria's face completely. Those contracts, Ethan continued, his tone almost pleasant, all have termination clauses. And as of this moment, I'm prepared to exercise every single one of them. Your foundation will lose its largest donor. Your family company will lose contracts that represent a quarter of its revenue. And that's just the beginning. You're bluffing, Victoria whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. Am I? Ethan smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. Would you like to test that theory? Because I'm a patient man, Mrs. Montgomery. I've spent 12 years building power for one purpose, to protect my family. I have resources you can't imagine. I have influence that spans continents. I have lawyers on retainer in 14 countries. And I have all the time in the world to make sure that everyone who knows your name understands exactly what kind of person you are. David grabbed his wife's arm more firmly. Victoria, apologize, he hissed urgently. For God's sake, apologize now. I won't, Victoria started, but David cut her off. Our company will be ruined. Everything my family built. Is your pride worth that? Maya watched as Victoria's face twisted with conflicting emotions, rage, humiliation, fear, and bitter resentment all warring for dominance. In that moment, Maya almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Mrs. Montgomery, Ethan said quietly. You have 10 seconds to apologize sincerely to my sister. After that, I make the calls that will dismantle everything you've built. Your choice. The ballroom was so quiet Maya could hear the chandelier crystals tinkling in the air-conditioning draft. I'm sorry, Victoria finally choked out, not looking at Maya. Look at her when you apologize, Ethan commanded. And mean it. Victoria's eyes lifted to meet Maya's. In them, Maya saw pure hatred barely concealed beneath a thin veneer of contrition. But she also saw something else, defeat. I'm sorry, Maya, Victoria said, each word seeming to cost her physically. I was wrong. I accused you falsely. I had no right to treat you the way I did. Maya stood there, her brother's arms still around her shoulders, looking at this woman who had seemed so powerful 20 minutes ago, and now looked so small. I accept your apology, Maya said quietly. Not because she meant it, but because she wanted this night to end. Ethan nodded slowly. Good. Now get out of my hotel. Both of you. Your event is over. But the charity, David started. The charity will receive its donations directly from me. Double what you raised tonight. Now leave. Victoria and David Montgomery walked out of the ballroom with whatever dignity they could salvage, which wasn't much. The crowd parted for them like they were contagious. When the doors closed behind them, the ballroom remained silent for another heartbeat. Then, like a dam breaking, everyone started talking at once. Ethan turned to Maya, his fierce expression melting into something softer. Are you okay? Maya looked up at her brother, her impossibly powerful, impossibly protective brother, and started to laugh. It bubbled up from somewhere deep inside her, part hysteria, part relief, part pure disbelief at everything that had just happened. Am I okay? She repeated. Ethan, I don't even know what reality is anymore. He smiled, a real smile this time, and Maya saw a flash of the brother she remembered. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you out of here. We have a lot to talk about. What about Grandma? Maya asked suddenly. She's alone at home, she doesn't know. She knows, Ethan said softly. I called her before I called you. She's the one who told me where you were working tonight. There's a car waiting for us. We're going to see her together. Together. The word wrapped around Maya like a warm blanket. As they walked toward the exit, Maya caught sight of their reflection in one of the gilded mirrors. Her rumpled dress, his perfect suit, her swollen cheek, his protective arm around her shoulders. They looked like they belonged to different worlds. But they were family. And tonight, Maya had learned that sometimes justice wasn't just a fairy tale. Sometimes it arrived in a black suit with an army of lawyers and the power to make bullies remember that everyone, no matter how powerful, has someone they answer to. The black SUV glided through the city streets like a shadow, its tinted windows reflecting the neon lights of a world Maya had always observed from the outside. She sat in leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent, watching her brother make call after call in Mandarin, English, and what sounded like Japanese. Between calls, Ethan would glance at her, checking she was real. She was there. Each time, Maya offered a small smile, though her mind was still spinning. We're here, Ethan said softly as the SUV pulled up to a rundown apartment building in the old district. The contrast was jarring. This gleaming vehicle worth hundreds of thousands of dollars parked in front of a building where the front steps were cracked and the mailboxes hung at odd angles. Maya reached for the door handle, but Ethan caught her hand. His grip was gentle but firm. Before we go up, he said, his voice heavy with emotion, I need you to understand something. What I did tonight, what I've been doing for 12 years, it's not because I didn't want to be here. It's because I couldn't come back until I had the power to protect you both. Protect us from what? Maya asked, though part of her already knew. From them. Our parents. The words hung between them, like smoke. Their parents. Maya's memories of them were fragmented, painful. Their mother's cold disappointment, their father's explosive anger, the constant feeling of never being quite good enough, quite right. They're dead, Maya said flatly. They died in that car accident when I was 12. You were already gone by then. Ethan's jaw clenched. They're not dead, Maya. The world tilted again. Maya gripped the door handle to steady herself. What? They're alive. Living in Singapore under assumed names. Grandma told you they died because I asked her to. Because it was safer for you to believe they were gone than to spend your childhood wondering why they abandoned you. Maya's breath came in short gasps. I don't understand. The funeral. I remember Grandma crying. Grandma was crying because her son turned his back on his own children. Because he chose money and reputation over his family. Ethan's voice was bitter. After the accident, my accident, the one where I crashed Dad's car, they didn't send me away to military school like Grandma told you. They sold me. Sold you? Maya whispered in horror. To a labor contractor. I was 19, rebellious, an embarrassment to the great Chun family name. So they arranged for me to disappear. I spent 2 years in factories on construction sites, places where no one asked questions about a teenager with no papers, no identity. his hands clenched into fists. They took everything from me, my name, my documents, my existence. As far as they were concerned, they had one less problem to deal with. Tears streamed down Maya's face. Ethan. But you know what kept me alive during those 2 years? The thought of you. And Grandma. The only two people who ever loved me without conditions. His voice cracked slightly. I escaped eventually. Made my way to Japan with nothing but the clothes on my back. Started at the very bottom, washing dishes, cleaning offices at night. But I had something our parents never understood. I had purpose. Titan Industries, Maya breathed. I built it from nothing. Every dollar, every connection, every success was earned through blood and sweat. And every single day, I thought about coming back for you. But I couldn't, not until I was untouchable. Not until I had enough power that they could never hurt you the way they hurt me. Maya threw her arms around her brother, and he held her like she might disappear. They sat there in the back of the SUV, two siblings who'd been torn apart by cruelty and greed, finally reunited by the weight of their shared pain. Does Grandma know? Maya finally asked. About you, about everything. She's known for 5 years. I found her first, made sure she was taken care of. The apartment you live in, the medical care, the money that mysteriously appears when you need it most, that's all been me, Maya. I've been watching over both of you, waiting for the right time. Why now? Why did you come back tonight? Ethan pulled back, his expression darkening. Because our parents found out about my success. 6 months ago, they started making inquiries. They want back in, want to claim their son, the billionaire, pretend the last 12 years never happened. And when I refused to see them, they started investigating my assets, my life. They found out about you. Maya's blood ran cold. They know about me. They know I've been protecting someone. They don't know it's you, not yet. But they're getting close. And when they find out, they'll try to use you to get to me. That's why I had security watching you. That's why I've been preparing to bring you into my life publicly. I need everyone to know that you're under my protection. What happened tonight with Victoria, you said someone slipped through. My head of security was supposed to be there personally. He had a family emergency, delegated to his second. The second was good but not thorough enough. When Victoria started the confrontation, my team alerted me immediately. I was in Tokyo, closing the Meridian deal. I left everything, walked out of a meeting with the Prime Minister, and got on my plane. He smiled slightly. I broke several air traffic regulations getting here as fast as I did. Maya laughed despite everything, a watery sound that was half sob. You really did all this for me? For us, Ethan corrected. You, me, and Grandma. We're family. The only family that matters. They got out of the SUV, and Ethan's security team materialized around them. Maya noticed they kept a respectful distance, but maintained careful vigilance. Is this going to be my life now? She asked, gesturing at the security personnel. Guards everywhere. Only until we're sure you're safe. Once our parents realize they can't get to you, they'll give up. They're cowards at heart. Ethan squeezed her hand. But yes, things are going to change. I have a penthouse downtown with plenty of room. I want you and Grandma to move in. I want you to finish your education. Any school you want, any field you want to study. I want you to have the life you deserve. They climbed the familiar stairs, past Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment where the TV blared, past the broken light fixture on the 3rd floor, past the water stain on the ceiling that had been there for 3 years. Maya had climbed these stairs thousands of times, but tonight they felt different, like she was saying goodbye. At the door to their apartment, Ethan paused. His hand shook slightly as he raised it to knock. She doesn't know I'm coming tonight, he admitted. I told her I'd visit soon, but I didn't say when. I wanted it to be a surprise. Maya understood. 12 years was a long time. Even with phone calls and video chats over the past 5 years, seeing someone in person was different. She took out her key and opened the door instead. Grandma, she called softly. I'm home, and I brought someone. The small living room was exactly as Maya had left it that morning, the worn couch with the crocheted blanket, the TV playing a cooking show, the smell of jasmine tea and Tiger Balm. And there, in her favorite chair, wrapped in a shawl despite the warm evening, was Grandma Chun. She looked up at the sound of Maya's voice, and her eyes, already weak with age, took a moment to focus on the figure standing behind her granddaughter. Then her hands flew to her mouth, and a sound escaped her that was part laugh, part sob, part prayer. Ethan, she whispered, my boy is home. Ethan crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of his grandmother's chair. This powerful man who had dismantled Victoria Montgomery's world with a few phone calls, who commanded billion-dollar empires and had world leaders on speed dial, wept like a child in his grandmother's arms. "Nai," he sobbed in Mandarin. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I stayed away so long." "Shushu," Grandma Chen stroked his hair with trembling fingers. "You did what you had to do. You survived. You came back. That's all that matters." Maya stood in the doorway, watching her family come back together, and felt something shift in her chest. The fear and uncertainty of the past few hours began to dissolve, replaced by something she'd almost forgotten: hope. Grandma Chen looked up at Maya, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Come here, child. Both my babies together again. This old woman can die happy now." "Don't talk about dying," Ethan said fiercely, pulling back to look at her. "I just got back. You're going to live another 30 years at least. I've hired the best doctors in the country. You're going to have everything you need." "What I need," Grandma said firmly, cupping both their faces with her small hands, "is right here. My family. Together. Finally." They stayed like that for a long moment, the 3 of them, in a tiny apartment that had been filled with struggle and sacrifice, but also with love. Outside, the city continued its relentless pace, but in this small room, time stood still. Finally, Grandma pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Now," she said with the practicality that had seen her through decades of hardship, "tell me everything. Start with why my granddaughter's cheek is swollen, and why you look like you just declared war on someone." Ethan laughed, and Maya joined in, and soon they were all talking at once, the story of the evening spilling out in a chaotic jumble of words and emotions. But beneath the laughter and tears, Maya felt something else brewing. A question that needed to be asked. "Ethan," she said during a pause in the conversation, "what happens when our parents find out you've brought us into your life publicly? What happens when they come for us?" Ethan's expression hardened, the CEO returning. "Then they'll discover that the son they threw away has become someone they should fear. And they'll learn that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about love and loyalty. And we have both." Grandma Chen nodded slowly. "They will come," she said with the certainty of someone who knew her son well. "Your father never could stand losing. And your mother." She sighed. "Your mother loved appearances more than truth." "Let them come," Ethan said quietly. "I'm ready for them. We all are." But as Maya looked at her brother's determined face and her grandmother's worried eyes, she wondered if any of them were truly prepared for the storm that was coming. Because in her experience, family wounds were the deepest of all, and some ghosts refused to stay buried. 3 days after the ballroom confrontation, Maya stood in Ethan's penthouse, staring out at a city view that still didn't feel real. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering skyline, and somewhere far below, the world she'd known for 22 years continued spinning without her. Grandma had settled into her new room with surprising ease, though Maya caught her sometimes touching the silk curtains or the marble countertops with wonder, as if confirming they were real. Ethan had arranged for a full medical team. The swelling on Maya's cheek had been treated by a doctor who usually tended to celebrities. The bruise was fading, but the memory remained sharp. "Miss Chen." A voice interrupted her thoughts. Marcus, Ethan's head of security, stood in the doorway. "Your brother asked me to inform you that you have visitors in the lobby. They're insisting they're family." Maya's stomach dropped. "What are their names?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Richard and Helen Chun. They don't have an appointment, but they're causing quite a scene, threatening legal action, claiming they're Mr. Chen's parents." The coffee cup in Maya's hand began to tremble. She set it down carefully on the glass table. "Where's Ethan?" "In a video conference with the board in Seoul. He asked not to be disturbed unless." "Get him," Maya said firmly. "Now. They're here for me, not him. He needs to know." 5 minutes later, Ethan strode into the living room, his face a mask of cold fury. Grandma emerged from her room, leaning on her cane, her expression unreadable. "They found us faster than I expected," Ethan said, pulling up security footage on the wall-mounted screen. The lobby camera showed a well-dressed couple in their 50s, Richard Chun in an expensive suit, Helen Chen dripping with jewelry that screamed new money trying to look like old money. Maya stared at the screen, searching for recognition, for some flicker of memory. But these people were strangers. The parents she remembered had been younger, angrier, always disappointed. These people looked polished, entitled, comfortable in their skin, in a way that felt wrong. They've been living well, Grandma said bitterly. On blood money and lies. What do they want? Maya asked, though she already knew. Me, Ethan said simply. My success. My reputation. The legitimacy they never gave me. He turned to Marcus. How many reporters are down there? 6 that we've identified. They arrived 10 minutes after your parents. Someone tipped off the media. Ethan's laugh was harsh. Of course they did. This is a performance. They want the public to see the heartwarming reunion, the billionaire CEO reconciling with his long-lost parents. It'll play beautifully in the press. So what do we do? Maya asked. Ethan looked at his grandmother, and something passed between them, a silent conversation born of shared pain and hard-won wisdom. We let them come up, Grandma said firmly. Let them say what they came to say. But this time, they don't get to control the narrative. Nai, you don't have to see them, Ethan protested. I can handle this alone. You've handled everything alone for too long, the old woman said, her voice stronger than Maya had heard in years. This time we face them together. As a family. 20 minutes later, Richard and Helen Chun stepped out of the private elevator into the penthouse. Maya watched them take in the opulent space, the marble floors, the original artwork, the view that stretched for miles. She saw hunger flash in their eyes. Ethan. Helen rushed forward, arms outstretched, tears already streaming down her carefully made-up face. My son. My baby boy. Ethan didn't move. His security team had positioned themselves strategically around the room. Helen's arms dropped as she registered his stillness, his coldness. Hello, Mother, Ethan said, his voice devoid of warmth. Father. Richard's approach was more cautious, calculating. His eyes swept the room, landing on Maya with sharp interest, then moving to Grandma with thinly veiled contempt. I see Mother is here, Richard said. Still poisoning young minds with her stories, I assume. Careful, Ethan warned softly. You're in my home. You'll speak respectfully, or you'll leave. Immediately. Helen dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Ethan, sweetheart, we've been searching for you for years. We thought you were dead. The relief when we discovered you were alive. Stop, Maya heard herself say. All eyes turned to her. Just stop lying. We know everything. We know you sold him. We know you took payment to make your own son disappear. Helen's tears dried up instantly, her face hardening. And who is this? The little charity case you've taken in? How touching. This is Maya, Ethan said, his voice dangerous. Your daughter, though you don't deserve to call her that. The recognition that flashed across their faces was sickening, not joy or love, but calculation. Richard's eyes narrowed as he reassessed Maya, seeing her now not as an obstacle, but as leverage. Maya, Helen breathed, switching tactics seamlessly. My baby girl, look how you've grown. I've missed you so much. You don't even remember what I look like, Maya cut her off. When you left, I was 10 years old. You never called, never wrote, never checked if I was alive or dead. Don't insult me by pretending you care now. Richard stepped forward, his voice taking on an authoritative tone that must have worked on business associates. We understand you're angry. We understand there are hurt feelings. But we're still your parents. We have legal rights. Legal rights. Ethan's laugh was cold. You sold those rights when you sold me. And as for Maya, you abandoned her 12 years ago. Any parental rights you had evaporated through neglect. We had our reasons, Helen said, her voice turning sharp. Do you think it was easy for us? The shame you brought on this family with your recklessness? The accident, the debts, the scandal. I was 19 years old. Ethan's control finally cracked. I crashed a car. Yes, it was stupid, but it was an accident. And your response was to erase me from existence. We gave you to contractors who promised you'd learn discipline, Richard started. You sold me to human traffickers. Ethan roared. I spent 2 years in forced labor. 2 years where I could have died at any moment, and you would never have known or cared. The room fell silent. Even Helen seemed taken aback by the raw pain in her son's voice. Grandma Chun moved forward, her cane tapping against the marble floor. She'd been silent until now, but when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades of heartbreak. You broke his fingers, she said quietly, and Maya gasped. Before you sent him away. You broke his fingers because he tried to fight back. My daughter-in-law held him down while my son took a hammer to his hand. Maya looked at Ethan's right hand, the hand she noticed had slightly crooked fingers. The hand that had built an empire despite its brokenness. He was fighting like an animal, Helen started to defend. He was fighting for his life, Grandma cut her off. And you destroyed him because you were embarrassed. Because your country club friends might gossip. Because your reputation mattered more than your own child. We did what we thought was best, Richard said stiffly. And look how well he turned out. Perhaps our methods were harsh, but they made him strong. They made him the success he is today. The audacity of it struck Maya like a physical blow. They were actually trying to take credit for Ethan's success. You made him nothing, Maya said, her voice shaking with rage. He made himself. Every dollar, every success, every achievement, that was him. You don't get to claim any part of it. Helen's mask slipped completely now, revealing the calculating woman beneath. Very noble, dear. But the fact remains, we are his parents. And with the right lawyer, we can claim a substantial portion of his assets. Family law in this country is very clear about parental rights to a child's earnings. I was 21 when I founded Titan Industries, Ethan said coldly. Well past the age where you had any legal claim to my earnings. My lawyers have already confirmed this. You have no case. Richard's expression darkened. Then perhaps we should tell the media the truth. About how you abandoned your family. How you let your sister live in poverty while you built your empire. How you let your grandmother suffer. Go ahead, Ethan said calmly. Tell them. But my PR team has already prepared a full disclosure. Every document proving what you did. The payment receipts for my sale. The medical records from when I escaped. The 12 years of evidence showing you never tried to find me, never cared if I lived or died. The financial records showing I've been supporting Maya and Grandma for years. Tell your story, and I'll tell mine. Let's see which one the public believes. The color drained from Richard's face. Helen looked between her son and her husband, clearly recalculating. You wouldn't, she said. The scandal would destroy all of us. I don't care about scandal, Ethan said. I care about protecting my real family. These two women are my family. You are nothing but DNA donors who taught me exactly the kind of person I never want to be. If you expose us, we'll expose you, Richard threatened desperately. We'll tell everyone about the labor camps, the trafficking, the illegal work. Your reputation will be destroyed. My reputation? Ethan smiled, and it was terrifying. I'm a survivor of human trafficking who built himself up from nothing. That's not a scandal. That's an inspiration story. But you're the parents who sold their son into slavery. How you think that plays in the court of public opinion? Helen's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto the nearby couch, uninvited. What do you want from us? Nothing, Ethan said simply. I want you to leave. I want you to sign papers relinquishing all parental rights and claims. I want you to never contact me, Maya, or Grandma again. And in exchange, I won't destroy you. That's blackmail, Richard blustered. No, Grandma said. That's mercy. More mercy than you deserve. Maya watched her biological parents sit there, deflated and defeated. She waited to feel something. Anger, satisfaction, grief. But there was only emptiness. These people were strangers who happened to share her blood. There's one more thing, Ethan continued. The money you were paid when you sold me. $200,000. I want it back. With 12 years of interest. That comes to approximately $800,000. You'll wire it to a charity of my choosing, one that helps trafficking survivors. We don't have that kind of money, Helen whispered. Then sell your jewelry. Sell your car. Downsize your house. I don't care how you get it, but you'll pay it. Consider it the price of my silence. Richard stood abruptly. You've become cruel, Ethan. Cold and heartless. No, Ethan said quietly. I've become strong. There's a difference. Maya stepped forward, standing beside her brother. You should leave now. You're not welcome here. You never will be. Helen looked at her daughter, really looked at her, and for just a moment, Maya saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. We'll sign your papers, Helen said finally. We'll pay your blood money. But don't think this is over, Ethan. You can't just erase your past. I'm not erasing it, Ethan replied. I'm choosing my future. And you're not in it. Marcus and his team escorted Richard and Helen Chun to the elevator. As the doors closed on their stricken faces, Maya felt something release in her chest, a tension she'd been carrying for 12 years without even knowing it. Is it really over? She asked softly. Ethan put his arm around her shoulders, and Grandma took her hand. The ghosts are gone, Grandma said. Now we can finally live. But as the city lights twinkled below them, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that one chapter had ended, but another was just beginning. And this time, she would write it herself. 6 months later, Maya stood backstage at the Titan Foundation's inaugural gala, adjusting the emerald gown that Ethan had insisted she wear. Through the curtain, she could hear the murmur of 500 guests, philanthropists, business leaders, celebrities, and most importantly, survivors. "You're going to be amazing," Sarah whispered beside her. Sarah, who had gone from waitress to Maya's best friend and the foundation's events director. Sarah, who had been brave enough to speak up that night when everyone else stayed silent. "I'm terrified," Maya admitted, pressing a hand to her stomach. "What if I mess up the speech? What if?" "Then you'll be human," Ethan said, appearing with Grandma on his arm. His grandmother looked radiant in a traditional silk cheapao, her hair elegantly styled, her eyes bright with pride. The medical treatments had worked wonders. She'd gained weight, her color had returned, and most importantly, she smiled constantly now. "Remember what I told you," Grandma said, patting Maya's cheek with her soft hand. "Speak from your heart. Your story deserves to be heard." Maya's story. 6 months ago, she'd been a waitress living paycheck to paycheck, invisible to the world. Now she was the co-founder and face of the Titan Foundation for Trafficking Survivors, a non-profit that had already helped 300 people rebuild their lives. The foundation had been Ethan's idea, but Maya had made it her mission. Every survivor they helped, every life they changed, it felt like healing the wound that had been carved into their family 12 years ago. "Miss Chun." A stagehand gestured. "You're on in 2 minutes." Maya took a deep breath. Through the curtain gap, she could see the audience settling into their seats. Front and center sat Victoria and David Montgomery. After that night at the Belmore, Victoria had reached out through lawyers, then through mutual acquaintances, and finally through a handwritten letter of genuine apology. She'd started therapy, she'd written, and had realized the depths of her own insecurity and cruelty. Maya had been skeptical until Victoria showed up at the foundation office, asking how she could help. Not with money, though she donated generously, but with her time. For 3 months now, Victoria had been volunteering, working with survivors, and slowly, grudgingly, Maya had begun to see her as human rather than monster. Redemption was complicated, Maya had learned. But so was forgiveness. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed through the ballroom. "Please welcome the co-founder of the Titan Foundation, Maya Chun." Maya stepped onto the stage, and the applause washed over her like a wave. The lights were bright, but she could make out faces, Ethan in the front row, his eyes shining with pride. Grandma beside him, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Sarah giving her an enthusiastic thumbs up. And there, in the back corner, she spotted Mr. Peterson, the former manager from the Belmore. True to Ethan's word, he'd received his severance and recommendation. He'd taken 6 months off, done some soul-searching, and was now working as a counselor for a job training program. He'd never manage again, but he'd found something better, purpose. Maya approached the microphone, her heart hammering. Then she saw them, 3 rows back, a young woman with scars on her arms sitting next to an older man who kept looking around nervously. Survivors. The people this night was really for. Her fear evaporated. 6 months ago, Maya began, her voice steady and clear, I was humiliated in front of 200 people at a charity gala. I was called names, accused of things I didn't do, and physically assaulted, all because someone with power decided I didn't matter. The room went silent. She had their attention. I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything. But what I didn't know was that my brother, a brother I'd been told was dead, was on a plane racing to save me. And that night changed everything. Maya told her story. Not just the ballroom incident, but everything, growing up feeling abandoned, working multiple jobs to support her grandmother, the constant struggle to survive in a world that seemed designed to keep people like her invisible. But this story isn't really about me, she continued. It's about my brother, Ethan, who survived something far worse than I ever did, who was betrayed by the people who should have protected him most, who spent 2 years in forced labor, 2 years where he could have died, and no one would have noticed. She looked at Ethan, saw him sitting very still, his jaw tight with emotion. My brother built an empire from nothing. Not for revenge, not for fame, but for one simple reason, so that he could protect the people he loved. And now, he's using that empire to protect people he's never even met, because he understands what it means to be powerless. And he's decided to spend his life giving power back to those who've lost it. The applause started, but Maya raised her hand. The Titan Foundation exists because my brother refused to let his trauma define him. He turned his pain into purpose. And tonight, we're announcing our most ambitious project yet. Ethan stood and joined her on stage, and the screen behind them lit up with architectural renderings. The Phoenix Center, Ethan announced, his voice carrying effortlessly through the ballroom. A $50 million residential facility that will house up to 200 trafficking survivors at a time. Free housing, job training, mental health services, legal aid, and education programs. Everything someone needs to rebuild their life from the ground up. The applause was thunderous now. Maya saw the young woman with scarred arms crying, her companion gripping her hand tightly. But we can't do this alone, Maya added. We need your help. Not just your money, though we certainly need that, but your voice, your platform, your influence. Human trafficking happens everywhere. In every city, every neighborhood, every country. And the only way to fight it is together. She paused, then said the words she'd been practicing for weeks. I used to think that people like me, people from nothing, people with no power, didn't matter. That we were invisible. But I've learned something important. Everyone matters. Every voice counts. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be silent. The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. Maya stood there, holding her brother's hand, feeling the weight of 500 people acknowledging not just her words, but her existence. After the speeches, after the dinner, and the auction that raised $12 million in a single night, Maya found herself on the terrace overlooking the city. The same city where she'd struggled and suffered, but also where she'd survived and ultimately thrived. Hey! Ethan joined her, loosening his tie. You killed it in there. We killed it, Maya corrected. This is our victory, not just mine. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the lights twinkle below. So much had changed in 6 months. Maya was enrolled in university, studying social work. Grandma had a full-time nurse and was healthier than she'd been in a decade. The foundation was exceeding every expectation. And their biological parents? True to their word, they'd signed the papers and paid the money. Maya had seen a brief news item 3 months ago. Richard and Helen Chun had moved to a smaller city, downsized their lifestyle considerably. She'd felt nothing when she read it. They were truly just strangers now. Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing? Maya asked, letting them go instead of exposing them. Ethan considered this. Every day. But Grandma was right. Mercy is more powerful than revenge. And besides, destroying them wouldn't have healed us. This, he gestured to the gala still happening inside, this is what heals us. Helping others. Building something good from something terrible. When did you get so wise? Maya teased. When I had to grow up too fast. He smiled, but there was sadness in it. But you know what? I'd do it all again. Every hardship, every struggle, every moment of pain, if it meant ending up here with you and Grandma, doing work that matters. Victoria appeared in the terrace doorway, hesitating. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say good night, and thank you for letting me be part of this. Maya studied the woman who had once been her nightmare. Victoria looked different now, softer somehow, more human. The armor of arrogance had been replaced with something that looked like humility. Victoria, Maya said carefully, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really come back? After everything, why volunteer with us? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Because I saw myself in some of the survivors. Not the trafficking part, but the powerlessness. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm worth something, trying to control everything around me because I was terrified of being nothing. She laughed bitterly. And in the end, all that control just made me cruel. You showed me that night that real power isn't about controlling others. It's about lifting them up. That's a good answer, Ethan said. And for what it's worth, people can change. You're proving that. After Victoria left, Grandma emerged onto the terrace, wrapped in a shawl despite the warm evening. There you are, hiding from your own party. Not hiding, Maya said, pulling her grandmother close. Just appreciating the view. It's a good view, Grandma agreed. But not as good as the view I have, watching my grandchildren change the world. We're hardly changing the world, Nine-Eye, Ethan protested. Aren't you? Grandma's eyes twinkled. You've helped 300 people rebuild their lives. You've shown that wealth can be used for good instead of cruelty. You've proven that family isn't about blood, it's about love and loyalty and showing up when it matters. She squeezed both their hands. Your parents tried to destroy this family. Instead, you've built something beautiful. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I wish I could go back and tell 10-year-old me that everything would be okay. That the brother she thought was dead would come back. That she'd end up here doing this. You can't go back, Grandma said wisely. But you can go forward. And you can help other 10-year-olds who feel lost and alone and invisible. You can be the miracle someone else is waiting for. Inside, the band started playing, and Sarah appeared at the door. Come on. They're doing the group photo with all the donors and volunteers. As they headed back inside, Maya paused at the threshold. 6 months ago, she'd walked out of a ballroom in shame, her cheeks swelling, her dignity shredded, her future uncertain. Tonight, she walked back into a ballroom as a co-founder, a survivor, a voice for the voiceless. The waitress who'd been told she was nothing had become someone who mattered. But more than that, she'd realized she'd always mattered. She'd always been worthy. The only thing that had changed was that now she believed it. Maya. Ethan called from inside. Come on. We need you for the photo. We need you. 3 words that meant everything. Maya Chen took one last look at the city lights, then walked back into the warmth and light of the ballroom. She was no longer running from her past or hiding from her pain. She was walking toward her future, a future she was building with her own hands, her own voice, her own power. And somewhere in the crowd, 500 people stood ready to walk with her. Because that's what happens when you refuse to stay invisible. You become the light.